Our program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. Again, the program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. Thank you.
Touch it.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Langen. I'm an interim president here at Bismarck State College, and I extend a warm welcome, and I emphasize warm, with our weather, our North Dakota weather today, to you all for being here on our campus. We're very pleased to be able to share this space for these important conversations for this group and really encourage all of you to take advantage of this time to be together, to share your information. It's very fitting that we're in this space, the National Energy Center of Excellence, which for Bismarck State College is one of our pillar program areas of serving energy needs. For over 50 years, we've been serving energy training and workforce development for this region and for the nation. And of course, in this space, it's very critical for us to be able to do that and do it well. Also, Bismarck State College is going through a very timely change. We have a lot happening here at our campus, Polytechnic mission expansion. So much of that is really critical when you think of future of education and workforce training in our state, in our region. For so much of our time in higher education, it's all about alignment. K-12 aligning with higher ed. And then in higher ed, we always align with our industry partners. And the paradigm has always been, let's just focus on alignment, and that is not working anymore. You have to integrate. And so K-12 needs to integrate with higher ed, and higher ed needs to integrate with industry partners. And that's what you're seeing unfold today in these conversations as we really focus and look at the benefits of our institution, our region, and the needs of our country. So on behalf of the institution, I want to extend all of you a thank you for being here. We want to be able to ensure that we have a space that is open and inclusive for everyone to be able to share their thoughts. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to Senator Kramer. Thank you, Senator, for your time, and have a wonderful conversation today.
Conversation's the right word. Thank you, Mr. President, for your vision, for your stepping in the gap. It has been my observation there's no such thing as an interim anything. That just means you're undecided about your future, but you never know for sure. But thank you for providing us this incredible space. Frankly, I can't think of a better space to do what we're doing today than this one. So thank you for that, and thank you all for being here. Those of you who braved the roads. Once an event is or a meeting is recognized and posted in the Federal Register, we like to try to have it. And believe me, there were some moments when we thought, is this what's best? But thank God for Zoom, right? We could have done it anyway, but you all braved it. There were about 5 of us on an airplane last night that I'm pretty sure The 20-minute delay in Minneapolis was for some reason other than us, but we were really grateful for it because we would have gotten here with Peggy's luggage at midnight if there was a seat for us. Yeah, it all worked out. But here we are, and thank you all for being here, and thank you, of course, to the EPA and to the Army Corps for making this the very first WOTUS listening session on the new rule, very first one in the country. And I don't want to say that that senators would ever leverage their power of a vote for a confirmation to make sure this happened, but it might have been a suggestion. But it was an easy one. Because you might recall, some of you, that the first one in the last administration was in this room as well. And they just didn't listen to us. So we have to do it all again with people that are much more attentive. It's really a great location. As I was just telling Peggy, I mean, when I look out there at that spectacular navigable water, I know it's navigable, by the way, the Missouri River. I'm quite certain of it. Not only does it meet all the legal requirements, but John Hoven fishes on it. He can drive his pontoon pretty much anywhere he wants to go on it, including to South Dakota. And we know what navigable means, so it's a perfect place to do that. And of course, we are in the heart here of the Prairie Pothole region. Our hydrology really has vaulted North Dakota into the leadership role on WOTUS. I think it's our hydrology and our common sense, maybe, and an agriculture commissioner that is going to stay through it until we have the durable rule for life. So thanks, Doug, for being here. And that's really, it culminated in us actually leading the legal challenge that eventually won on the Obama Waters of the United States rule. You might recall that we know the issue really, really well, and we've been successful in articulating it. The Clean Water Act abides by the tenets of cooperative federalism this way, you guys, by recognizing the responsibility of who? The states. To address water pollution, and states are tasked with primacy. And why wouldn't they? We're tasked with the primary enforcement of clean water. And yet the federal agencies are responsible for defining what a waters of the United States is, as though it's a tough definition. The result's been a regulatory nightmare, right? The ping pong we've often talked about, the back and forth of between administrations. Past administrations have completely ignored states' rights. They haven't just ignored them; they've been hostile to states' rights, and they falsely assume that a water body is not federally. If it's not federally protected, it's not protected at all. Can you imagine the arrogance of something like that? Do you know where some of these bureaucrats live? I wouldn't trade 1 gallon of our water for 10 gallons of theirs. And yet somehow they're smarter than we are. And we're going to get this rule right. Under North Dakota state law, the Department of Environmental Quality and State Department of Water Resources are charged with the regulations. And all waters in the state are under their regulation. And they determine whether they fall into federal jurisdiction. Under the 2015 Obama rule, and I'll never forget this, more than 80%, by the way, Doug Goring's going to talk in a little bit, and if he doesn't remind us of this with a really good chart, I've got it with me. More than 80% of North Dakota's landmass would have been under federal jurisdiction because of our vast presence of prairie potholes and ephemeral features, like the desert, like Badlands. I mean, who doesn't know that's a water? It's hard to be serious with that rule. It was a slap in the face of states who have legal authority in managing our land and water resources, and nobody can do it better than we can. The significance of SACIT cannot be overstated. Now that gets back to the Supreme Court decision that we're living with now. We were until we got a new EPA. Cannot be overstated, since the new EPA, but cannot be overstated and does not require a law degree to comprehend. I wrote a piece before SACIT for the Harvard Law Review. I was thinking about it last night. I should go back and read that predicted exactly what has happened. There were several North Dakota cases that have been significant in the Supreme Court's decisions of states' rights. The court concluded that the Scalia, remember this, the Scalia-Rapanos plurality was correct. He issued the plurality opinion when he said the Clean Water Act's use of waters encompasses only those relatively permanent, standing or continuously flowing bodies of water, like the Missouri River, forming geographic features that are described in ordinary parlance Ordinary in parlance, kind of funny. But anyway, ordinary parlance as streams, oceans, rivers, and lakes. Anybody know what a stream, ocean, river, or lake is? Pretty clear, pretty clear. WOTUS does extend to some wetlands, but only those wetlands that are, quote, indistinguishably part of a body of water that itself constitutes waters of the United States. Wetlands that are separate from traditional navigable waters cannot be considered part of those waters, even if they are located nearby. For a wetland to be jurisdictional under the Clean Water Act, it must be adjacent to a relatively permanent body of water connected to traditional interstate navigable waters that John Hoven can drive his pontoon on. And it must have a continuous surface connection with that water, making it difficult to determine where water ends and where the wetland begins. Dave Glatt, you could have told us this. We didn't need all of this. Anyway, this is the legal prescription of clarity that we have needed for years, and I'm really grateful that this administration and Administrator Zeldin, unlike the Biden administration, has crafted a rule within the confines of the law. Durability. If you don't want to stop going to the Supreme Court every 4 years to have them correct you, you just write the right rule. And I think that's what we've got here. Farmers, developers, landowners should not need to hire expensive consultants. No offense to the expensive consultants, but they shouldn't have to fire you to justify their management decisions. Requiring that is tantamount to assuming they are all guilty unless the all-knowing federal government deems them righteous. I like to describe it as putting a highway patrolman on every car in the interstate. And before you can drive the speed limit, you have to ask their permission. Can you imagine? That's what they're suggesting. I still have some of these consultants say to me, yeah, but how will they know? How will they know if they don't get, my analysis of their situation? It's really simple to know. And you don't presume that you're gonna violate the law. You just do it. You only get a ticket if you break the law. One final thought. I often tell witnesses and federal nominees, please don't impose your federal mediocrity on North Dakota's excellence. That's what they do. As you sit here today and listen to North Dakotans, I really hope that you listen to their comments and consider them as you continue to go through the rulemaking process. Any definition of WOTUS must not impact states' primary authority over their water. And I look forward to working on this rule, making it durable, one that will stand the test of time, and one that the Supreme Court doesn't have to fix for us every few years. So with that, I want to welcome, of course, our governor, Governor Armstrong, who's been such a champion. You guys, I'm sitting up here with two of my very best friends and partners, and I'm looking down at others, really good friends and partners who work in the state capitol here. I don't know, and when I you think about Congresswoman Fedorchak, who still has to work in Washington today. They took that long time off. But anyway, I'm not bitter about it. But she's back there doing the heavy lifting in Washington today. John and I got here last night. But we have so many blessings, not the least of which is each of our committee assignments, each of our chosen areas of focus to include, obviously, energy and environmental issues that we all prepared for pretty well. But most of all, we have the blessing of you. Most of all, we have the blessing of really smart people, common sense, people who work the fields, provide energy for a growing economy, food for a hungry world, develop beautiful places like the one where we're sitting right now. And so we look really smart. But today we have the advantage. Today the nation has the advantage of your wisdom. So that's what we're going to do today. This is an officially recognized, very first, as I said, listening session for the new Waters of the United States rule. And so the nation gets to benefit from your wisdom and your testimony. So with that, I turn it over to the governor, who has seen this issue from at least 4 or 5 different angles. As somebody who loves the land, as somebody who governs a state, as somebody who has served a 6-year sentence, as I call it, in Congress, and from a business perspective and from a legal perspective. And so we're really fortunate to have Governor Armstrong with us. Governor.
Thank you, Senator Kramer, and thanks for putting together this listening session and ensuring the state of North Dakota has an opportunity to provide direct impact on the WOTUS issue. And a sincere thank you to Peggy Brown for making the trip to join us today. The Trump administration's commitment to getting out of Washington to talk to with people on the ground is refreshing and really much appreciated. By the way, it's noticed by our Democratic colleagues as well. They might not say it publicly, but they notice as well the communication lines. The Biden-era WOTUS rule was an existential crisis in North Dakota. And it kind of occupies a unique space. And I'm glad you brought up the Commissioner Goring and the map, because my first introduction to WOTUS was as a state senator when our former Attorney General, Wayne Stenjum, was working on an injunction. And Doug showed me this map, and I think it was 84% of North Dakota, 84%. And I'm just an old criminal lawyer, so I'm not good into injunctions and stuff, but I pointed at something, I go, well, this is really dumb. And you're like, why? I go, because that's Dry Creek. It's on our ranch, north of Medora. That's Dry Creek. You know why we call it Dry Creek? Because it hasn't had water in it in 150 years. And now it's going to be a part of federal overreach. But it's been an interesting space because it's been a part of my life the entire time I've been in politics. But because of the hard work of states, attorney generals, and ag commissioners, it's never actually been into effect. But it's always been in the background, and it's been dangerous, it's been existential. And it represented just an absolute massive federal overreach that would have been catastrophic for North Dakota's farmers, ranchers, and energy producers. And that's why our state has been at the front end, the tip of the spear in pushing back on previous iterations of the rule that would have just, quite frankly, put 90% of North Dakota's production into agency buildings in Washington. So thankfully, we're here to discuss the Trump administration's new WOTUS rule. This proposed rule protects our water resources while protecting and preserving private property rights. Under the new rule, farmers and ranchers won't have to worry about asking the federal government permission before they can plant a soybean crop or run cows on their pasture. I have several members of my cabinet here today, and I will let them cover the specifics of the rule. Additionally, the state will be submitting extensive written comments as part of the rulemaking process that will provide further detail in our feedback and suggestions. While these comments are still being drafted, we would suggest some clarification as it relates to several important definitions in the rule, and I will let others around in the audience and around the table speak to that. But again, I want to say thanks to Senator Kramer, Principal Deputy Assistant Brown, Senator Hoeven, and everybody else who's joining us here today, because it is refreshing to be able to do this with people working for our federal government that I know are actually going to listen, take what we say. We're never always going to agree on. We're not supposed to agree all the time. That's not the point. The point is it's very great to be up here knowing that North Dakota voices will actually be heard. So I really, really appreciate that, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Governor. Very well said. You know, one of the good fortunes that Julie and I have in Congress is that we have a really good mentor in Senator Hoeven, a good partner, somebody who brings, again, lots of experience from this wonderful state, but also as a governor. I think it's amazing how many former governors are in the United States Senate. John, I've never understood why they do that, but I'm glad they're there, because every governor brings that state perspective, and it's invaluable. And it's not very well understood by people who haven't done that. So we're really grateful to have Senator Hoeven here today, and a guy who's been through these battles with us every step of the way. Senator.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. And, you know, thanks, obviously, for setting up this listening session. And Kevin's an absolute leader in the Senate in general, but certainly on EPW, Environment and Public Works. He's on that committee. I'm on the energy side. He's on the EPA side. Couldn't have a better guy there. He knows, you know, he's on the Public Service Commission. So when he starts talking about this stuff, I mean, he begins at a place where I'm already behind. I mean, I'm trying to catch up, and he knows this stuff cold, as you can tell. And that really matters, because in Congress, you know, obviously, just like our great state legislators here, you deal with so many things, and obviously can't be an expert in all of them, let alone even a couple of them. But in this area, he is an expert. And it's so important because it touches everything, right? I mean, it touches private property rights for landowners. It touches our incredible ag industry. We're an ag powerhouse for this country. It touches our energy industry. We are an energy powerhouse for this nation, and it affects all the other states, everybody across this great country the same way. And so it really is important. It's important to get it right. Big thanks, of course, to Kelly. We're fortunate. I mean, it was great having him in the House, and of course, now it's great having Julie, but he's just doing an incredible job. He and Kirsty both as Governor and First Lady, and the host of their breakfast this morning. Thanks for doing that, Kelly, and thanks for your incredible leadership for the state. Peggy, thanks for coming out. She actually worked for a very good friend of mine and Kevin's, and that's one of the great senators from Arkansas, John Bozeman, who's our ag chairman leader, and she's an Aggie. So Doug, I mean, that's why she looks so awesome, right? I mean, you just could see the glow coming off her. Smart, and tells you knew right away, because she's an Aggie, and she worked on the ag committee, and so that's fun. I already got a picture, and I'm sending it to Bozer to say, hey, what are you doing? We got Peggy here in North Dakota. So thanks for being out here, and of course now doing incredible work with Lee Zeldin, who's doing an amazing job. And Lee Zeldin and Kevin are buddies from the House. And so that shared heritage they have works really well too with them up at EPA now. So that's a real asset for our state, just the relationship that they have. And Lee Zeldin is, I mean, he's action oriented, right, Kevin? I mean, it's pretty amazing. And to Lee and our friends at the Corps and Army, thanks. There's so many important issues out here that we need the Corps of Engineers help on. That we need y'all working with us, not against us. And so it's very important that you're here. And we appreciate the leadership there. And Adam Tell now, who is Assistant Secretary of U.S. Army, who oversees the Corps, a very good friend of ours. He was in the Trump 1 White House, and he worked for Bill Hagerty from Tennessee, and he's an all-star. And so we appreciate him too. And having those relationships is incredibly important. We started working on WOTUS 10 years ago. I'm on appropriations, and we started defunding the Obama rule about 10 years ago. I think it was 2016. And of course, we're just fighting a war of attrition, because every time we defund it, then he'd bring it back, and his EPA would bring it back. And as Kelly said, it touches everybody. Like I say, property owners, all of our industries, everything. And so we've been fighting this battle forever. Of course, then when President Trump got elected for his first term, Andrew Wheeler was here. Kevin brought him out. It's very similar, right? It was we're sitting right here, and he was fun, right? He had the best sense of humor. But talk about action-oriented. He put together a rule that truly respected property rights. He did. I mean, it was simple, it was straightforward, and it started where you got to start, and that is respecting property owners' rights. And so that was the WOTUS rule we had in effect. And then, of course, when President Biden was elected, he flipped it around, went back to the old Obama rule. And so we want to thank President Trump and the Trump administration and Lee Zeldin for taking out that rule. And now we're going to go back and we're going to do it right. And we're going to start where you got to start, and that's respecting property owners' rights. And then all these other things that go into it. But that's where it starts, and that's what we have to get right. And that's what this listening session is all about, is getting that input so we can rebuild that rule the way it should be, and we will. And Kevin will be an absolute leader in that effort. He already is, obviously. It'd sure be nice, wouldn't it, Senator Kramer, if we could muster the votes to make this permanent law. And if we could get some more colleagues on the other side of the aisle to work with us a little bit, it'd sure be nice if we could do that for the good of North Dakota and for the good of the country. Thanks, Kevin.
Well said, Senator, of course. And one thing I will say, it would be great to codify a solid rule that would have much more consent than we've been having. But I believe that this rule has that potential because of the science behind it. Not because of the politics behind it, but because of the science, the defensibility of it in the law. And the courts have created a pretty good template for us to start with. So if let's hope that's the case. That's what we're here to try and get done today. The next person that's going to present to us is going to do it via the big screens, I think, right? Jess Kramer should be on with us. Jess is the assistant administrator for the Office of Waters, the Waters Office, as we call it. Jess is a very good friend. She's got incredible background. She's served in Florida, and she's a legal expert. But most importantly, for me and for my team, is Jess was worked the waters issues for the Environment and Public Works Committee, and that's where we got to know her best, because she was so common sense as well as super smart, and always helpful and responsive, and has been ever since she's been at the EPA. And she was unable to make it today, but she's going to kick this off and introduce Peggy here in her comments. And so, Jess, welcome. I wish you could see this spectacular view that we're looking at out at the Missouri River, but we know you're where you need to be right now.
Thank you so much, Senator Kramer. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Fabulous. I think my head is giant in that room. And so everybody give me a little grace in terms of having a giant talking head. Thank you so much, Senator Kramer, for your introduction. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you all in North Dakota. I sincerely wish I could be there in person and see the view that you're looking at. My view is one of that bureaucracy in DC. I'm looking at concrete buildings. But you've got great members of the OW team out there in North Dakota. The first thing I want to share with the people in the room and online is what a champion you have in Senator Kramer for the state of North Dakota. There is nobody, and no disrespect to anybody else in that room, but Senator Kramer, he has got your back on this issue. He knows what he's talking about. Speaking of somebody who understands the science and the law, he is a huge advocate, a fierce advocate for you all in ensuring that we get this right. I also want to recognize the leadership of Senator Hoeven and Governor Armstrong, and I want to thank the hospitality of Bismarck State College. Thank you for having us. I do want to put a pin in that pontoon boat that I've heard about from you, Senator. And so, you know, if there's an opportunity to go check out WOTUS from a pontoon boat, as a Wisconsinite, all about that. Yeah. Again, I truly wish I could be there in person, but I'm glad to be represented in the room by Peggy Brown and Wes Brooks. The rule we are discussing today was a true partnership with the Army, and I also sincerely appreciate Lee Forsgren joining us today as well. This public meeting represents two things that are very important to me. The first is the American heartland. I was born and raised on a Christmas tree farm in Wisconsin, and it warms my heart that North Dakota, this North Dakota hearing allows us an opportunity to hear from locals about their experiences and challenges with federal regulations. Second is implementation of the Clean Water Act. I will admit, I am a water nerd. And because of that, I do truly believe that we can develop workable, common sense solutions that protect water quality under the Act while supporting American families, property owners, and economic growth across this country. And I believe we can do that under President Trump and Administrator Zeldin's leadership. The agencies developed a proposed rule because the 2023 definition of WOTUS, as we've heard, even after being amended, failed to fully implement the Supreme Court's clear direction in Sackett. The 2023 rule also shut out public comment and ignored concerns from farmers, small businesses, and landowners. Uncertainty created by that rule is no doubt driving up costs across this country and is pinching the pocketbooks of American families and causing significant uncertainty for farmers and landowners, just like what y'all see out there in North Dakota. We heard this directly in listening sessions just like this one, and we've heard this from folks all over the country. At its core, this proposed rule intends to achieve three objectives. First, it would fully implement the direction provided by the Supreme Court's 2023 Sackett decision. The Supreme Court has laid out the limits of federal jurisdiction over waters and wetlands with this ruling, and it is EPA and Army's job to fill in the remaining details and ensure that the court's interpretation of the law is reflected faithfully in regulation and supplemental guidance and implementation. Our second objective is to cut red tape, to reduce the cost of doing business and reduce the cost of living for Americans. Reducing unnecessary regulatory burden reduces costs for agricultural producers and manufacturers and lowers the cost of living for us all. Third, the proposal would protect water quality by striking the rem. I want to ensure that we spend most of our time here today listening to you all, but I just want to highlight a few aspects of the proposal. In addition to fully implementing the Sackett decision, the proposal aims to provide clear rules of the road. For example, the proposal would provide clarity by revising exclusions for certain ditches, prior converted cropland, and waste treatment systems, and by adding an exclusion for groundwater. And I know we can't visit North Dakota without revisiting the issue of prairie potholes. I think that's maybe the first thing I ever talked to Senator Kramer about when I started on EPW. And it was hey, do you know what prairie potholes are? And I will tell you, I've learned a lot about them since that first conversation. And I am excited to be here today to give you a little bit of insight into what we think our proposed rule does with respect to prairie potholes. Under this proposed rule, small isolated features that lack a surface water connection to adjacent rivers, streams, lakes, or oceans do not satisfy Sackett's conditions to warrant federal oversight and would fall under the exclusive jurisdiction of the states and tribes to manage and conserve as they see fit. Let me put that into ordinary parlance. We believe that that likely excludes almost all of your prairie potholes. Obviously, we'll be working to hear your comments to see if that's what this proposal does, but that is, we believe, where we have landed. As I mentioned, we are here today to listen to your public input on our proposed rulemaking. We need to know if there are ways we can improve this definition for the American people. And the work we do in the Office of Water has shared goals to promote healthy families, vibrant communities, strong economy and energy dominance, and the recognition that especially farmers know their lands best. Property owners know what's happening on their land. They know when the water flows. This proposed rule aims to tap into that knowledge and recognize that the American people know what happens on their property and that the states are the right folks to be regulating where that is appropriate. I would like to now, after obviously, again, thanking you for joining us, thanking you for allowing me to join remotely, I would like to introduce Peggy Brown. Peggy, you have already heard overwhelmingly wonderful things from Senator Hoeven. Peggy is a remarkable advocate for the agricultural sector in the water space. We are so lucky to have her in the Office of Water. She's also a dear friend, and so I could gush over her for a very long time. But I'm excited to introduce her. She's the Principal Deputy Assistant Administrator for the Office of Water, and just a great fit to be there in person for you guys in my absence to be able to hear concerns. So Peggy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jess. And we were just commenting up here. Thank you for being able to join us today. We're really appreciative of this great technology that allowed that. It's always good to hear from you. Before we move on, I want to just take a quick minute to have Wes Brooks, our Deputy Assistant Administrator, who just previously mentioned, stand up, so that everybody knows who Wes is and can find him at a break or something. But anyway, thank you for making the trip, Wes. And I want to echo everything Jess just said. Thank you for joining us today. I would simply add that for Jess and I, it's always a priority to focus on practical, on-the-ground implementation of where the agency develops policy. And that's why we're here. We know that the best policy is not made in Washington, D.C. alone, that it comes from the real communities, from the states like North Dakota, and from hardworking Americans like you. We need your input, and that's why we're here. So I really appreciate you all taking the time today, and I look forward to hearing from you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army of Civil Works, Lee Forsgren.
Thank you very much, Peggy. I can't say how happy I am. This is my second trip in a week to Bismarck, and I'm thrilled to be here. I was here last week for a Western Water Conference, again, one of Senator Kramer's I won't say crown jewels, but significant accomplishments, legislative accomplishments. For those of you who don't know, I had Peggy's job during Trump 1, and I was actually here with Administrator Wheeler in the North Dakota trip when we were doing this in the first Trump administration. So as you can probably tell, this is not my first WOTUS rodeo. It's about my sixth. Yeah. But I will say that one thing that this rule does that changes, and within the court is going to completely change our parlance and how we look at that, is we have debates over whether something is a wetland or not is an academic exercise that does not practically matter. The Supreme Court in Sackett, one of the reasons that we had difficulties in 2020 was the Supreme Court, because we were dealing with a plurality decision in Rapanos, was the law was a little bit muddled as to how far could we go. The Supreme Court did us a really big favor when they clearly drew some really clear lines on the map on what does and is not a water of the United States. Whether something is a wetland or not is a wonderful academic exercise, but we can only implement the law as it's written and interpreted by the Supreme Court. And that is what I think that Jess and we have dealt with in this rule, that we have really implemented. I'm not trying to be partisan, but the Biden rule it paid lip service at best to complying with Sackett. Its intention was to completely ignore the Sackett decision. We believe the law is very clear now, and we fully intend to implement it. I can't describe, as usual, Jess and Peggy have done a much better job than I can about outlining what's actually in the rule. I'm happy to listen, and if there's any questions, we can deal with that. But I'm thrilled to be here. I did have to laugh, Senator Kramer, when you talked about your map. There was a joke we used a lot during the first Trump administration when we were trying to do the WOTUS rule, was that the Obama rule, which effectively the Biden rule had turned every square inch of land in the United States into a navigable water of the United States, which is the term of art that is in the Clean Water Act, which is the authority the federal government has to regulate. And so with that, I guess I'll turn it back and say we're thrilled to be here and want to listen to what you all have to say, because it's going to be a lot more important than what folks in Washington have to say.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. And you're right. That's and by the way, just say thanks to Adam Tell as well. Senator Hoeven mentioned Adam. I fought with the Corps of Engineers, besides being on the EPW committee, which oversees much of the Corps' activity. I'm also on the Armed Services Committee that oversees the Army. And so I've brawled with lots of people over this rule. And Adam, when he came along, and to John's point, we've known Adam a long time in a couple of capacities. When I said, we'd passed the law to form the Western Waters Advisory Council a long time ago. And bureaucrats, including bureaucrats with 2, 3 stars on their shoulders, lawyers with the same, kept coming up with reasons why they couldn't implement it, until I finally told them, we didn't pass a suggestion. We passed a law. No attorneys necessary. That's the point of laws. And the stall quit once Adam got confirmed. That was the end of the stall and the forming of the council. And by the way, that was a law that had the support of, I think it's 18 states from California to North Dakota, and you can figure it all out. They're not all the same, but it had the support of 18 governors and 18 attorneys general, and you know how diverse that group can be. So, you can come back to Bismarck anytime, Lee. Okay, with that, I wanted to turn it now, of course, to a couple of other. Really, you're thinking, when does the rubber meet the road? What's it now? So we are talking about law, we are talking about rules, we are talking about interpretations, and we are talking about giving authority where it belongs, and that's to the states. So next I want to hear from our very good friend and great lawyer on behalf of the state of North Dakota, Drew Wrigley. Sure, how about right there?
Thank you. I found in my, thank you very much, Senator Kramer and Senator Hoeven, Governor, and others of you who are here today. We appreciate the opportunity that you're having this hearing. And my opportunity to speak for the next 40 minutes is really welcome, and I want you to know.
Could I get another cup of coffee?
Is that why I've been asked to stand for these remarks? No. I'll be real quick. I found in my role in the last 4 years as Attorney General, it's my job to make disagreements into knife fights. And I've just done a heck of a job with that, I think, on several fronts. And this is one where we, you're going through the history of this matter. It is remarkable, and I'm glad to hear Senator Hoeven talking and others talking about getting to that point where we build in something permanent, the quaint idea of actual laws, not regulations made by some bureaucrat in cubicle 4 in some place that none of us have ever been to, because there's a lot of folks in this room with an enormous amount of knowledge that comes forward, and they are stakeholders and can inform the judgments and do of the lawmakers in this country. Again, quaint idea. Something that I spent late hours last night and this morning working on an AG's opinion that I'm working on, different setting, but the exact same premise, that we really do have these provisions that get set in law after stakeholders come in and talk to our lawmakers. And so I appreciate the chance to say a few things in this hearing. Also, my job, I serve on the Industrial Commission in North Dakota along with the governor and the Ag Commissioner, and my job there is to second motions of the Ag Commissioner. I found 4 years, I wish I were getting paid per second of motions by the Ag Commissioner, but really we've worked so cooperatively with our great Agriculture Commissioner, and you're gonna hear from him next. Because what we do is we serve as the conduit for the information that comes from folks who know, work on, love this land, and to the benefit of the people of this region and the country. And so I want to commend everybody in the work that they're doing. We were proud to lead a 24-state coalition that enjoined this regulation. And that's the posture that we're in right now. And we're glad to have stopped things. Like I say, we will turn a skirmish into a knife fight, but that's what we've had to do here to stop and let people, common sense and practicality prevail. So we've led that coalition of 24 states. There's another 3-state coalition that's out there and has just put things on stop so that smart people like all of you can hear from great folks who understand the practicalities of this. And here you are in North Dakota where, there aren't many people or they're more than one generation removed from immediately on the land. And there are a hell of a lot of people that are out there that are generation after generation of living on, working on, benefiting from, and praying that the next generation can do the same thing. No one loves this land and understands its workings more. And Senator Kramer's remarks at the beginning of that, I think, set the tone on that in that regard. And I'm going to sit down real quick because I do say this not just because they're our friends, but we've all worked together. It's a small state. We've all worked together for a lot of years, and we've seen the practicality of what they do, how hardworking they are to gather information from rooms like this, and what it means to a state like ours to have people that will give of themselves in that regard. I also want to highlight a person who you're not going to hear from today, because then it'd be really smart stuff and you wouldn't understand the words, neither do I. But our great Solicitor General of the state of North Dakota, Phil Axt, who has been leading the legal effort on this matter very, very capably and well. And I appreciate so much that we were able to bring him into government service here. He's a great North Dakotan. He's a graduate of West Point. He worked for Senator Hoeven one summer when he was at the Yale Law School, clerk for in one of the major circuits in this country, and has come out of the private sector to do public sector work extremely well on behalf of the state of North Dakota in leading coalitions on this matter and other matters that they aren't all exactly the same, but they rhyme. So thanks for having this hearing. Thanks for the philosophical approach that you're all talking about this morning. And then whatever Commissioner Goring says, I'm going to second that, but I won't stand back up to do it. And thanks to all the people who are here today to participate in this. And I know that they've worked with all of you for years and will continue to up ahead.
Thank you.
One last thing I should mention, you mentioned the state legislature in North Dakota. This is no small matter. My office is able to do the work that we're doing because of the support that they give us.
For sure.
To the tunes of millions of dollars every biennium, fighting our federal government in too many instances. And this is really nice to see and hear that we can be working closely with our federal government, not just our representatives and senators, but that's a big deal. But we've got the will here in North Dakota, and we've got the resources to bring those fights But it's nice to know that they're going to be curbed by some real good decision making. Thank you
Well,
very much.
thank you for that, for all of that, Drew, but especially that last point. It really is a good one. I know John has a great appreciation for the legislature having had to be the governor for 8 years. But anyway, but you're exactly right. And we advocate strongly for your budget for that very purpose. And by the way, North Dakota legislature, I know it's a heavy burden to have to take care of everybody else's legal problems for them, but we're the best to do it. We're the best to do it, and we've got the right team to do it. So thanks for raising that point, Drew. Very important. And now the maker of maps, I have used his maps so often in Washington, D.C. I hope I never have to use it again, Doug. But if necessary, as you can tell, we have it here with us, our great Agriculture Commissioner, Doug Goring.
Well, thank you. Good morning. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you, Senator Kramer and Senator Hoeven. I know that Assistant Administrator Kramer was joining us and is probably still listening, but I very much appreciate Deputy Assistant Administrator Brown. Thank you, and to Governor Armstrong, and to Mr. Forget. Is it Forsgren? Okay. If you would give me the liberty, the map that is before you, as you can see, if you look on the left side of the map, it's a map of North Dakota. It kind of illustrates what we would call some water features, or at least when you see there the North Dakota Prairie pothole region. The one on the left that was up earlier in orange, that is from the first attempt in 2015 with Waters of the U.S. when they identified every dry ditch, ephemeral stream, intermittent stream, just about anything out there with a 4,000-foot adjacent buffer to anything that they deemed and thought would flow into a traditional navigable waters. And much to the point that Senator Kramer pointed out, it did encompass about 84% of the state's area. And that was concerning. So I'm glad we've gotten to this point. We've had successes in court, but I think with that, I should probably get on to my testimony. I wrote it down because if I didn't, I'd be here for the 40 minutes that was actually obligated to Attorney General Drew Wrigley. So thank you. Thank you for your efforts in providing predictability and durability regarding WOTUS. Past WOTUS rules have been overbroad and ambiguous. They lacked regulatory certainty. They encroached upon our state's sovereignty, and they perpetuated federal government overreach. I commend EPA in proposing a WOTUS rule that will properly and reasonably shape federal jurisdiction consistent with cooperative federalism and in accordance with the most recent U.S. Supreme Court decisions and the Clean Water Act. Past WOTUS rules harmed law-abiding farmers and ranchers who own and operate and manage approximately 90% of the land in North Dakota. Those rules adversely impacted our nation's food security. The newly proposed WOTUS rule, I believe, will permit North Dakota producers to reliably conduct operations in a manner that will consistently safeguard our nation's food security. And our nation's food security is national security. North Dakota is a core part of that prairie pothole region. North Dakota has tens of thousands of prairie potholes that sporadically may hold water, small amounts of water, when it rains. These dryland features are simply low spots on agricultural lands. However, under some past WOTUS rules, EPA unreasonably viewed these low depressions as jurisdictional waters. Consequently, everyday agricultural activities on these dry spots, such as plowing, planting, tree cutting, fence building, in or near them, would trigger EPA jurisdiction. Producers could only conduct these activities with EPA approval, and to get EPA's approval, the producer too often had to retain expert consultants and hydraulic engineers and specialized lawyers just to get them through the complex federal permitting process. These past WOTUS rules did not represent good governance. Instead, they constituted blatant federal overreach and directly encroached upon our state sovereignty. North Dakota, through its laws, agencies, and water districts, already properly protect the sovereign waters of the state, both surface water and groundwater. North Dakota understands the specific and unique environmental needs and can best regulate its own waters. Our farmers and ranchers are custodians and partners in continuing the protection of our state's water and land resources. Our farmers and ranchers are active environmentalists, not environmental activists. And they need a clear, durable, and a workable WOTUS rule. As a result, the final WOTUS rule must provide clarity and certainty to a great degree. This current proposed rule does. It removes the vagueness, cuts red tape and permitting costs, and empowers states and local communities to effectively manage local water resources while protecting property rights, ensuring economic growth, and fostering environmental stewardship. However, the proposed rule, I believe, can even be made better. EPA could tighten it up in a few areas that would better protect against future abuses from others. Most notably, EPA could look at the definitions for relatively permanent waters and continuous surface connections to wetlands. The proposed rule defines those terms to include water features that only exist seasonally during wet seasons. That causes some serious concerns. North Dakota's prairie pothole region, because the federal government could assert jurisdiction over sloughs and dry depressions simply because they might overflow 1 or 2 times a year. Relatively permanent should mean having water all year round and connect to a tributary. Second, can you ask? Just tell them I'll take it later. Thank you. The second is a method for deciding when water is jurisdictional. The proposed rule says the federal government will conduct a weight of the evidence analysis. And when it mentions numerous hydrological and other tests for that analysis, little concern. Instead, EPA should adopt a clear test that all waters are presumed non-jurisdictional unless the federal government establishes a jurisdiction by clear and convincing evidence derived from objective, field observable indicators. That said, this proposed rule is much better than what we had before. Thank you for that. I'm confident that the final rule will be straightforward and sensible, a regulatory framework that will stand the test of time. With that, again, thank you, Senator Kramer, for making this happen. Thank you again, Assistant Administrator Kramer, I believe you're still out there, and Deputy Administrator Brown, thank you.
The assistant administrator did text, and she did listen to every word, Doug. Thank you for that. And I do love it when somebody stands up and challenges you to aim for perfection. I think that's a good goal, and it's a good reminder that some terms of art can become snares in the wrong hands. And thank you for reminding us of that. But at the same time, durability also counts.
If you take all the adjectives out of the rule, Drew can ask the legislature for less money.
Well, and there's another incentive for you. I love when incentives line up. With that, we're really grateful. You know, when you think about all of the ways WOTUS and a bad rule can interfere, certainly in linear construction, and probably the greatest challenge is in road construction, maintenance, even just improvements. So we have Ron Hankey, the director of the North Dakota Department of Transportation, here to speak to that. And thank you so much for your leadership on all of this, Ron.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Kramer and Senator Kramer, for holding this listening session. It's a great opportunity for us to share our thoughts on WOTUS. And just so clear, I am Ron Hankey, a director of the Department of Transportation, North Dakota, and we believe that the changes in the proposed rule have helped a lot. It's going to streamline the determination of whether wetlands are jurisdictional or non-jurisdictional, but we also believe there's a few minor changes that could be made to help clarify things even more. It's important to our agent that the agency, EPA, provide a clear, broad, and administratively non-burdensome exclusion from regulations roadside ditches. And our focus is on roadside ditches. Approaches that leave doubt that roadside ditches are broadly excluded or that would require significant documentation from the Transportation Department or require transportation departments to obtain a dredging or fill permit just to do maintenance work should be avoided at all costs. Roadside ditches are important to the department. They get the water off the road. They allow it to flow to the stream. They protect the base and the sub-base of that road, making that road last longer. It also, for North Dakota, provides a great place to store snow, because we do get a little bit of that. Thus, work to maintain those roadside ditches is extremely important for us and should be as easy as possible so we can make sure those roads last. You know, it's no question that ever since before Sackett, our ditches were scrutinized. They were taking jurisdiction over almost every ditch that we have. And our agency, the determination of those ditches being waters of the U.S. has caused us a lot of extra work. We have to get permits. It delays projects. And you know, in North Dakota, if we have a month, 2-3 month delay to try to get a permit, for us, it's a delay in the construction season potentially. And that's why we can't make the improvement that the public is waiting for. We can't improve safety because it might just be a simple turn lane we're trying to construct. So we have a recommendation that you adjust the focus a little bit. Broad and clear exclusion of roadside ditches from WOTUS entirely. We would combine the existing exclusion that all ditches constructed or excavated entirely in dry land with an additional exclusion of all ditches that carry less than relatively permanent flow of water. The final regulation should include ditches that either have one or the other, not just construction. The change would correctly achieve a broader and clearer exclusion of roadside ditches from WOTUS. We believe this change will help clarify the determination of WOTUS and if a permit should be issued or not, and if work should be allowed or not. We also believe that this will minimize delays in making determinations, saving time, costs, improve the speed of completing projects, and is in the public's best interests. We will be filing our comments. We comment on all these rules. We do expect several states around us to join in our comments. We have a 5-state group that works on these, and we're aligned on these things. Again, we appreciate the proposed rules showing movement in the correct direction, but as experts in roadside ditches, we encourage you to consider these comments so that the regulatory streamlining that you are seeking is truly achieved. Thank you for your time.
Very well said, Ron. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. When I think of, just storage of snow. You know, there's stuff that a lot of places don't deal with or think about, and the safety factors as well as the infrastructure factors. And then I was thinking about the short season as well, the construction season. If you have to get a 401 permit that takes you a year to get, or two or whatever, and then it's fall, it's too late to take advantage. I don't have to explain it all to you, but you raised some very good practical points, so thank you for that. And now, to tell us probably even more about that, we have, where's Jim? Okay, come on up, come on. Jim Jackson from Moore Engineering. These engineers have had to learn more about bureaucracy than about engineering, I swear half the time, but from the engineer's perspective, Jim, thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you, Senator Kramer, and thank you all for the opportunity to be here. I'm Jim Jackson with Moore Engineering. We're a civil engineering consultant serving the Midwest and headquartered here in North Dakota. Much of our work is affected by WOTUS. We do a lot of environmental permitting. And so I have a prepared statement specifically written by our environmental group. Moore Engineering works alongside our clients to find solutions to their most critical engineering and environmental needs, which include municipal infrastructure, transportation, site development, water resources, and other projects to build strong communities for people to live and work. In recent years, our team of consultants has navigated ever-changing WOTUS policy and terminology that has caused confusion and inefficiency within both the application of and implementation of the Clean Water Act. This has caused delays, increased expenses, and caused confusion for our clients as they have secured or allocated funding for projects that have become caught up in permitting and rule implementation consistencies with the agencies. As consultants, this impacts our ability to effectively serve our clients, help them design and construct their projects, and ultimately, how our business is successful. The proposed WOTUS definition will clarify and create consistency within the application of WOTUS and implementation of the Clean Water Act on future projects and decisions. This clarification will aid in the application of WOTUS definitions, streamline the regulatory Clean Water Act review and approval process, and overall improve the efficiency and development of projects within the nation. Thank you all very much for your time.
Very well said. As you were talking, I was thinking about, you said something that some people might think is, inconsistent, but I would love the way you put it, and that is that you're helping your client. Your job is to create a structure in the safest, most efficient, effective way possible. But you could make a lot of money doing 401 permits, right? I mean, he could bill a lot of hours in a complex bureaucracy, but that's not the goal of a builder. That's not the goal of an engineer. And so I appreciate the way you articulate that beautifully. And Molly, you're next up to talk to us about it from the perspective of the actual builder, representing the Associated General Contractors from Northern Improvement. So thank you so much, Molly Barnes.
Good morning. My name is Molly Barnes. I am the Executive Vice President of Northern Improvement Company. We're a fifth-generation family-owned and operated road construction company based in North Dakota, but we work in many other states. I also represent the Associated General Contractors of North Dakota, which is the state's largest commercial construction association, representing over 400 member companies performing all types of commercial construction projects. I am currently the president of the AGC of North Dakota. In the past, WOTUS has been unclear and unequally applied to business by government agencies. The court ruling Sackett v. EPA provided clear direction to agencies. However, the prior administration did not fully embrace the court's limits on federal jurisdiction. I have personally seen this lack of implementation. Regulatory clarity is extremely important so businesses know what to expect and what is expected of them. We are grateful that the agencies clarified that groundwater is not a WOTUS through an exclusion. This has long been accepted and understood. We appreciate the clarifying of definitions for some key terms, such as relatively permanent and continuous surface connection. Gray areas within the regulations introduce a lot of uncertainty. Delay for projects and stoppage of projects happen. The uncertainty can cause project proponents to throw up their hands in frustration as companies have to ping pong between agency interpretations as to how to conduct business. The court in Sackett expressly endorsed the reasoning of the plurality of opinion in Rapinos v. United States as correct. That same Rapinos plurality explained in the sentence immediately following the one quoted in the amended rule that the waters of the United States does not include channels through which water flows intermittently, ephemerally, or channels that periodically provide drainage for rainfall. Rapinos, by excluding channels through which water flows intermittently or ephemerally, it can be deduced that a feature that experiences only intermittent or ephemeral flow, by definition, cannot be relatively permanent, standing, or continuous flowing of water. In short, intermittent and ephemeral features are not jurisdictional. This is a very important key for clear direction and equal implementation of WOTUS. We are also grateful that the agencies retain the exclusion for most ditches. Even if the ditch conveys water, which is what is intended to do, roadside ditches are important for maintaining the safety of our nation's roadways during wet weather. Contractors work in and around ditches as they maintain and build roads and other infrastructure. I'd appreciate the opportunity to give my feedback. Thank you all.
Very well done. Thank you for that. Now we're going to shift from road builders to building builders, and Don Dabbert with the North Dakota Association of Builders. Somebody, as you might imagine, we hear from a lot of these people a lot on policy issues. It's really fun to be able to bring it to you guys. And so Don, take it away from, in fact, Sackett is largely, the Sackett actual case itself was largely about a home. You know, it could have been a lot of things. Obviously, there's a lot of examples of the imposition of the government on private property rights. But the decision, and I thought, by the way, when Sackett was the chosen case, I thought it was kind of a crazy idea. I thought that, you know, but boy, did they come up with a good ruling on it. But Don, thank you for being here.
Yes, good morning. As Senator Kramer mentioned, my name is Don Dabbert. I'm the president of Dabbert Custom Homes based in Fargo. We are a home building and developing company. For over 30 years, our company has helped families achieve their dreams of home ownership. I'm an active member in the Building Association in the Red River Valley, North Dakota Association of Builders, and National Association of Home Builders. I've been there long enough that I'm actually now a senior life delegate somehow.
How could you?
Currently serving as the national area chair, so that covers a region of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. My comments today focus on the exclusions in the proposed WOTUS rule. Based on my experience as a builder and developer in the upper Midwest, I can attest that it is extremely difficult to keep up with the constantly changing WOTUS rules, definitions, guidance, and field interpretations. I therefore strongly encourage the support of the agency's goal of establishing the durable WOTUS definition that with clearly worded exclusions. The clear jurisdictional exclusion will give landowners certainty about which features are not federally regulated when contemplating development or even purchasing additional land. For example, the Navigable Waters Protection Rule included a regulatory definition and categorical exclusion for ephemeral features. The proposed rule does not. Instead, the proposed rule defines previously undefined terms such as continuous surface connection, relatively permanent, by requiring jurisdictional waters to exhibit continuous or at least seasonal surface flow during the wet season. As a result, all ephemeral features and many intermittent features would be excluded from the CWA jurisdiction. Excluding all the ephemeral features from the CWA jurisdiction is consistent with the Supreme Court's Sackett rules, as you mentioned earlier. The Rapinos plurality, which stated the CWA does not regulate ordinary dry channels that carry water only occasionally or intermittently. Further this week, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Permit Act, H.R. 2888, which reforms federal wetlands and stormwater permitting program that includes an amendment excluding all ephemeral features from the CWA wetlands jurisdiction. The proposed rule revises 3 existing exclusions. The waste treatment systems, B1, the prior converted cropland, B2, and ditches, B3, and adds a new exclusion for the groundwater. Regarding waste treatment systems, I appreciate that the definition includes all components of the waste treatment system designed to meet the requirements of the Clean Water Act. This should encompass erosion and sediment controls and stormwater management systems required under the NPDES permits, as well as many state, county, and municipal stormwater and green infrastructure mandates imposed by MS4s during both construction and post-construction phases. Unlike the NWPR and earlier WOTUS definitions, the proposed rule does not clearly exempt all stormwater control features. Without this specific exclusion, the agencies should ensure that the waste treatment system exclusion covers all construction phase and post-construction stormwater controls, including those that outside the MS4 area and those installed before the CWA's enactment in 1972. Because of the proposed definition lists functions performed by these measures, such as convey, retain, concentrate, settle, reduce, and remove pollutants, the agency must ensure that the list fully captures all stormwater control functions. The proposed changes to the prior converted cropland exclusion improve clarity by establishing that PCC remains excluded unless the land is abandoned and reverts to a wetland. A change in land use alone should not eliminate the PCC exclusion. Regarding ditches, the proposed definition provides more clarity than prior WOTUS definition. It correctly removes the phrase relatively permanent, which was unnecessary because ditches can be excluded regardless of their flow regime. Further distinguishes portions of the ditch that run through dry land from those portions that bisect jurisdictional features. This is especially important for builders and developers that we regularly impact roadside ditches when installing the rights-of-way, driveways, and sidewalks. Finally, the proposed rule reinstates the NWPR's groundwater exclusion. Congress did not intend for the CWA to regulate groundwater and reserve that authority to the states. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again today. Again, builders and developers appreciate the clarity and look forward to working with you as this moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Don. A couple of things that you said that really strike me. And maybe you have an assessment of this. If not, we should certainly find out if we can. And that is, what would you anticipate the additional costs would be to a developer, to a contractor, or more importantly, to a purchaser, I guess, to having this rule screwed up, the 401 permit process?
Yeah, earlier estimates, depending on what our land is like, we've been involved in numerous cases where we've had as an implied low land that we've had to mitigate and buy new credits for in excess of, a few $100,000. And it was still just almost as flat as this room. So when you divide that over the number of lots in that development, that's a direct impact before we even put a shovel in the ground, much less the other features that we have to put in that are burdensome. In some cases, we've estimated nearly $25,000 per address before we even do anything whatsoever.
Okay, that sounds like an affordability issue to me.
Very much so.
Thank you for that. And anybody else in any other industry that has a statistic like that, I think would be really valuable to the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
And he did not know I was going to ask that question. I'm glad it's worse than I thought. But speaking of worse than I thought, one time in an EPW hearing on this issue, we had both the undersecretary and the general in the hearing. And at that time, I was the chairman of that subcommittee. And I remembered the general, who I really liked, in his opening testimony stating that, well, last year, we had 81,000 regulatory actions. This year we and I thought clearly I must have dozed off and heard it wrong. So I asked him in cross-examination, I said, I just want to get that number right again. You meant 81, right? Not 81,000 federal actions? No, that's about right, 81,000 federal actions. He said it like it's just, coffee break, 81,000 federal actions, it's just a day in Washington. And I was so astounded by it. And he said, well, most of them aren't real long, they're fairly easy permits. I'm the 81,000. And then when Sackett was ordered, that when that order came out, and I read the opinion, and a lot of the folks on the other side we're going, well, that will reduce jurisdiction by like 80%, maybe 90% of the landmass of the country. To which I said, yay. And so I called the general and I called the undersecretary and I said, So we can reduce your workload, thus your budget by 80 to 90%, right? Because you don't have that much to do anymore. Of course, what they came back with was, yeah, okay, but to be sure, the landowner will have to require our permission, our jurisdictional determination. That is code for permission. BS. Anyway, but you remind me of that. Thank you very much. Now to Representative.
Senator, that number is over 100,000 between, but when they said shorter, that means roughly 75,000 are issued under either general or nationwide permits. But your point is absolutely dead on. They are still, you still have to seek the government's permission.
That's what we have to get rid of. But thank you for reminding me that Andrea Fanning from the Greater North Dakota Chamber is with us to bring the perspective from the large business community that is represented by the Chamber. Thank you, Andrea, for being here.
Thank you. Good morning. As mentioned, my name is Andrea Fenig, and I'm Vice President of Government Affairs for the Greater North Dakota Chamber. GNDC represents businesses of all sizes, all sectors, local chambers, industry associations across North Dakota, and thank you very much for being here today. Our members consistently emphasize the importance of a regulatory system that is predictable and easy to navigate. After years of shifting definitions and changing interpretations, businesses of all sizes are looking for a framework they can depend on. This proposal moves us in that direction. By aligning federal jurisdiction with the Supreme Court's Sackett decision, the rule reduces the uncertainty that slows projects, creates permitting backlogs, and drives up compliance costs. When rules are unclear, timelines slip, budgets become unpredictable, and investment decisions get delayed. In North Dakota, where, as it's been mentioned, construction seasons are short, these delays carry real economic consequences. A clearer definition of federally regulated waters will help companies plan secure financing and keep projects on schedule. That level of predictability encourages continued investment across the state. We value the exclusions for ditches, prior converted cropland, and other routine features. These updates help ensure that everyday activities and improvements aren't unexpectedly subject to federal permitting. For our members, that means lower compliance risks and more certainty in day-to-day operations. The proposed rule also acknowledges the role of state and local expertise in managing waters outside federal jurisdiction. North Dakota's landscape is unique, and incorporating local experience helps create a system that works in practice and not just on paper. As this rule moves forward, supporting the use of general permits for projects with limited environmental impacts and clear guidance on the relatively permanent standard, including what qualifies as a wet season, will help projects stay on schedule and ensure the rule is applied consistently. In closing, GNDC feels this path strengthens the foundation North Dakota needs to grow its economy while maintaining responsible stewardship of natural resources. When businesses understand and can have confidence in the rules, they invest, they build, and they innovate. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make comments.
Thank you for being here, for your work at the Chamber. Dave Glatt is somebody that he's been the go-to guy on so many of these issues and then some over the years. So we just kind of go like this when he steps up. But we're really grateful. First of all, we're really grateful for your service, Dave, over the years and for hanging in there with public service. So he's the Director of North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator, and to you and Senator Hoven, welcome home. It's good to see you again. Governor, good to see you. And welcome to balmy Bismarck, Administrator Brown and Secretary Forsgren. It's really good to see you here. And it's good to be here in Bismarck, the first in the nation listening session on WOTUS. I think this is kind of ground zero for a lot of people, and we appreciate you coming here and listening to us. For the record, I'm Dave Glatt. I'm Director of the Department of Environmental Quality for North Dakota. We are the primary environmental protection program or agency in the state. We implement programs such as the Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, Clean Air Act, all those fun acts that Congress passes for us to implement at the local level. But the important one is the Clean Water Act and how we get involved in implementing that at the state level. Historically, North Dakota has taken an active role in protecting and maintaining the quality of water resources by enacting state legislation that protects all waters, regardless of whether those waters are subject to federal jurisdiction. Under state statute, waters of the state include all water above and below the land surface. Not only does state law protect more water resources than defined in WOTUS, but it also provides for greater protection by prohibiting untreated discharges into surface water and the placement of waste in a location that is likely to cause water resource pollution. It is important to note that water resources not considered jurisdictional under WOTUS are regulated through state statute and administrative rule in North Dakota. The DEQ appreciates the efforts taken by the Army Corps and US EPA to craft a WOTUS rule designed to identify jurisdictional waters in a common sense manner, reflecting the Sackett v. EPA Supreme Court decision. The proposed WOTUS rule gets us closer to defining a regulatory pathway that can be interpreted and implemented at the local level. We appreciate and support the WOTUS proposed rule before us today. It emphasizes navigability, that's easy for me to say, as it is its foundational premise. To provide even greater clarity and consistency in implementation, we have highlighted definitions relating to terms of relatively permanent, continuous surface connection, and tributaries as needing additional clarification. Specifics on these referenced amendments, along with insight into other concerns, such as reference to ditches, wastewater systems, prior converted cropland, and ponds and lakes, will be included in written comments submitted by the state of North Dakota. North Dakota has extensively been involved in the WOTUS rulemaking process. We have long supported a WOTUS rule that properly conforms to the jurisdictional limitations of the U.S. Constitution and the Clean Water Act, and recognizes the state's major role in protecting state waters by implementing any WOTUS rule, demonstrating our commitment to preserving regulatory control over our sovereign land and water resources. North Dakota is a longtime partner in the conversation surrounding WOTUS. We are well qualified and prepared to actively be engaged with federal agencies and stakeholders on the protection of both WOTUS and waters of the state. In the spirit of cooperative federalism, we believe this framework will provide for greater understanding and acknowledgement of local and state expertise. We look forward to working with our federal partners as we refine and implement the new WOTUS regulations. That concludes my testimony. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dave, very much. Now, Julie Ellenson, who represents Stockman and represents them really well, has for a long time, one of our favorite educators. I just think that's what people in government relations do. They educate people like John and me, and we have them all on speed dial because it's easier than studying. But anyway, it's really great to have you here, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, Senator Kramer, Senator Hoeven, Governor Armstrong, and welcome to North Dakota to our EPA and our Army Corps of Engineers guests. As the Senator said, my name is Julie Ellingson. I'm a fourth-generation Angus seed stock producer and the Executive Vice President for the North Dakota Stockmen's Association, which is a 96-year-old beef cattle trade organization, and appreciate the opportunity to be here. For as long as the Clean Water Act has existed, ranchers have struggled with the jurisdictional determination and status of features on their own private property. Prairie potholes, ephemeral tributaries, and isolated wetlands have been the subject, as you know, of jurisdictional tug-of-war between federal and state governments for over 50 years, creating gray areas, costs, and unnecessary red tape for producers like me and others in other industries. With this proposed rule, however, we have come a long way in addressing cattlemen's and cattlewomen's concerns about the waters of the United States definitions and previous rules. Interesting, collectively, cattle producers are the nation's largest land manager, grazing on nearly a third of our continental land mass. So if we're talking about direct impacts and regulatory overreach on water features, ranchers are certainly at the tip of the spear. In a time when regulatory changes pressure test our producers daily, a legally and practically narrow WOTUS definition is critical to ensuring that our industry can continue to maintain America's grasslands ecosystems, natural water filters, and wildlife habitat. For too long, ranchers have been unable to determine whether features on their own property are federally jurisdictional. The unanimous court in Sackett found the lack of practicality, the violation of the Clean Water Act, and landowners' constitutional due process rights. A practical WOTUS definition will allow the average landowner, not an attorney or an engineer, to walk out on their own property to see a water feature and at minimum, make a preliminary WOTUS determination. Specifically, the North Dakota Stockmen's Association strongly supports the agency's proposed two-part test for the jurisdictional tributary category, which requires the existence of both continuous surface flow and physical indicators. We additionally support the explicit exclusion of ephemeral features, ditches, subsurface drainage, stock ponds, and waste treatment systems. Finally, interstate waters that do not satisfy another jurisdictional category of WOTUS should not be jurisdictional based on their interstate status alone. Many cattle operations stretch across state boundaries, and many of these operations have ephemeral or isolated features or wetlands that weave from one to the other. These features, however, certainly do not contribute to interstate commerce and would not be jurisdictional if they did not cross the state line. The unnecessary regulation of these features would really stretch the agencies beyond their means and waste valuable resources on areas that contribute very little to downstream water quality. As we look to the future, North Dakota cattle ranchers look forward to clarity in WOTUS and settling confusion and regulatory overreach once and for all. We certainly appreciate the agency's work on this rule, as well as the opportunity to share some feedback this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for that, and for reminding us that it was something I generally would say in this context. The whole idea of, and the reason navigable is so important, it's not just because, you can put a boat on it, but the whole federal jurisdictional question is constitutional at its core. And the Constitution gives Congress very little authority over many things, but it does over defending the shores of the country, not delivering the mail, but we're glad it gets delivered. But interstate commerce is specifically designated in the Constitution of the United States as a federal jurisdiction. And that's why this navigable description is so important, the definition of navigable. It's not just about, like I said, it's not just about getting a boat on it, it's about interstate commerce. And so thank you for reminding us of that. Now to hear from, to stay with the agricultural theme, we want to hear from the North Dakota Farmers Union. Ryan Gregg is here to provide their testimony. And just a heads up, when Ryan is done, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. And then this listening session will continue to include several of you who are on the list, as well as people who may not be on the list, as well as people virtually. This listening session will continue to make sure we fill this record as full as we can with from people with common sense. Ryan, thank you for being here.
Hi. Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Ryan Gregg, and I am the legislative specialist with the North Dakota Farmers Union. North Dakota Farmers Union represents family farmers and ranchers across the state. The North Dakota Farmers Union supports this rule, and we believe this rule faithfully adheres to the Supreme Court's Sackett decision. There are, however, several areas where we believe this rule can be strengthened even further. We strongly support strengthening the prior converted cropland exclusion in the rule. The final rule should clearly define abandonment. Temporarily idled land for conservation or marketing conditions should not be considered abandoned. Second, we are concerned with the proposed definition of relatively permanent. In North Dakota's semi-arid climate, the idea of a predictable wet season does not reflect reality. Many features hold water only during spring spell melt or extreme precipitation years. These ephemeral features should be explicitly excluded, with clear limits on jurisdiction to waters with continuous flow or standing water for a defined minimum duration. Third, we have significant concerns with how continuous service connection is applied in the prairie pothole region. North Dakota contains thousands of small depressional wetlands formed by glacial activity that may appear connected only during extreme wet seasons. Temporarily flooding across uplands should not create federal jurisdictions. Wetlands separated by uplands or natural features do not meet the Sackett standard, and categorical exclusions for very small and seasonal flooded wetlands are needed. Finally, agricultural drainage must be clearly protected. North Dakota relies on road ditches, farm ditches, legal assessment drains, and tile outlets to manage excess water and protect farmland and infrastructure. The final rule must clearly exclude these systems and confirm that routine maintenance does not expand jurisdiction. In closing, North Dakota Farmers Union urges the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers to strengthen this rule further, and even so that farmers and ranchers are given more certainty to run their operation. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you.
Thank you very much. So, boy, it's 11 o'clock on the button. So we will take this 15-minute recess. When The hearing continues. Drew Courtney, you'll be up first, okay? Just so people know. And I know Chad Weckerle from North Dakota Farm Bureau, you'll be right after Drew. And so just sort of prepare for that at 11:15. Thank you all. We're in recess.